YouTube, One Dish Two Fish ROC. I've been super busy with life these last couple of months, but one of the things I did was I rebuilt my biofilter. I thought you guys might want to take a look to see how I did it, and maybe you'll want to make one too. So let's take a couple steps back and I'll show you how I did it. This is my little water garden that I made 3 summers ago. And the biofilter in question is this one right here. I built it in 2017. I just came across all the original photographs that I took when I was building it because that was way before I ever started doing anything on YouTube. Anyways, I will go ahead and grab it. I'm going to bring it indoors and we're going to put it back together again so I can give you all a sense of what's involved in order to make one of these little guys. Really simple stuff. Okay, here's the rundown of what you'll need to do the project. First off, PVC cutters. If you've not invested in a pair of these by now, you really should. You can get these everywhere, your big box stores, Walmarts. I found mine at Tractor Supply. If you do anything with plumbing, water gardening, fish keeping, keep a pair of these around. I use mine all the time for all sorts of things. You're going to want to get some PVC pipe. Now, you want to do a little research, decide upon, first off, based on the capacity of your pump and your actual biofilter container and the amount of water that you want to push through, you can pretty much choose what you want. This is not the size I used. I actually used 1-inch PVC, but this is just sort of a visual representation. Fittings. These fittings will all be slip fit connections. This is a T. You'll need 3 elbow fittings. Of course, some Teflon plumber's tape. And these are 2 unique little fittings that you'll need up where the water is going to go down into and through the biofilter. This is called a reducer bushing. This one is slip fit on one end, threaded on the other. And again, this isn't the same size as what I used, but this is for representation. Again, this is a barb connection, threaded on one end with your barb end on the other. The outlet of the biofilter container will require a gasketed bulkhead, and this is called a hose coupler. Now this part is not necessarily required, but I like the looks of it. Plus, this guarantees that when I set my biofilter just next to my water garden, the water will indeed make it into the water garden and won't dribble down the sides of the biofilter container. Additional items, and again, you'll see this in context when I start reassembling this. Some airline, an air stone. You'll also need egg crate, whatever pond piping you plan to use, and this is what I used. Not always necessary. It's hard to see in the shot here. I'll try to back it up a little bit. This is a floor polisher pad. I got mine at Home Depot. Anywhere that you can rent floor polishers, they should have these in different levels of coarseness. For those of you that are unfamiliar with hole saws, you'll need a hole saw fitting to cut the proper hole into your container. This is just a cheapy $10 set of hole saws that I got from, I believe it was Harbor Freight at the time. Even Walmart carries a little basic 5 set because your bulkhead's going to require a slightly larger hole saw blade than the actual size of the bulkhead fitting. So anyways, another really handy thing to have around the house. Anytime you want to drill a hole in anything, be it a sump, a biofilter container, anything. These make the job easy. And then you're going to need some kind of biofilter biofilter material for down in the biofilter container. So I happen to have a combination of, I've got some old bio balls, lava rock, chopped up filter pad. This happens to be chopped up floor polisher pad. It's very coarse, very rigid, holds up real well. A lot of people use the infamous dollar store pot scrubbers. And again, these are dirty because these came out of mine. I think I mentioned lava rock, but if I didn't, there you go. So pretty much anything for your biofilter material. I'm going to go ahead, pause the camera, and I'm going to show you how I make the different pieces of the piping that's going to feed the biofilter. We're going to start out with this assembly here. As you can see, this is the PVC pipe with an elbow at each end. You want to turn them in opposing directions, connected with the T. So in theory, what you're going to be doing is creating, when the water goes down through and into your biofilter, it's going to enter down at the bottom. Putting these in an opposite direction, as far as the elbows go, is going to create a vortex action to help keep the water going. It will help sediment separate out and land on the bottom of your container. Real easy stuff. Again, slip fit connection. You can always use tape or something if you need to secure it a little better, but not necessary. So there's your bottom assembly. The feed. All right. This is the feed assembly. So based on the height of your biofilter container, you're going to want to cut your pipe to the right length. Here's where the third elbow comes in. Then the next part is connecting, making it so you can connect this assembly to your pond piping, this right here. This is an example of that. So there's your reducer bushing with the threaded barb connection. These were tough for me to find. I searched all over the place and finally found them at a combination of plumbing specialty. So yeah, that got a little expensive. But also check out places like your hydroponics shops, your brewery, your home brew shops. They also are a good resource for picking up oddball items. So this is the assembly here. All right. So the filter is following what they call a Skippy filter design. So the water will feed down from the top down to the bottom. So it's going to come from your pond piping, down the piping, and into the T assembly. So now you've got dirty water coming directly from your pump down into the bottom of your biofilter. So it should be swirling around a bit. So again, sediment, things like that can settle down, land on the bottom. So these are pretty easy, straightforward to make. The egg crate is going to serve as a guard between your T fitting, or excuse me, your T assembly and the pipe that's going to feed down into that. The purpose of this is, again, to give you a bit of space between where your biofilter material is going to start and the absolute bottom of the container. And again, you're just going to want to measure and cut this to size roughly. My vessel obviously is round, so you just clip it to size. Then again, you'll see when I start assembling, then you'll be able to go ahead and fill your biofilter with all this stuff here. And again, none of that will fall all the way down to the bottom of the pot and clog up the piping or anything of that nature. Time to pause again, and we'll talk a little bit about the actual biofilter container, and then we'll get to assembling this thing. Okay, time to put the filter together. This is just a nice looking resin plastic flower pot that I picked up from Tractor Supply. Obviously, you can choose anything you want. People with really large systems often use those Rubbermaid stock tubs, but if you want to do something a little decorative, you can go that route as well with a flower pot. So as you can see, I used the hole saw to drill the appropriate size hole for the bulkhead fitting that I used. Then I attached the hose coupler. And as you can see, it just gives me enough of a reach that when the water comes out of this thing, it definitely is not going to spill outside of my water garden container. I just thought it looked pretty good. I'm going to set this down, start putting things together here. So the first thing you'll do is you drop your little T-assembly down in there. And it's good actually if it doesn't sit dead flat on the bottom. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't, if it does, but mine just happens to sit up just a fraction of an inch above, which I like. It sits right down in there. Your next thing will be getting all of the different layers together here. So first off will be the egg crate. Now you can have this sit as close to the piping as you want down at the bottom. I cut this last night. I actually may make it a little smaller, but for informational purposes this will do. So you want to put that in first. Then your next step would be to add the floor scrubber pads. Now these come, as I said, in all types of coarseness, so I chose two. I chose the most coarse one, which is usually this black color, again found at Home Depot, and then a lesser coarse right here. And these will automatically come with this larger piece already drilled out, so it fits on the actual floor polisher equipment. But I went ahead and just chopped a hole down through the middle that fit my piping a little more tightly. So you're going to take your water feed assembly, you're going to thread it down through the floor polisher pads like this. Then you're going to push that down into your T-assembly, and these get pushed down onto the top of the egg crate. The next step would be to go ahead and fill your vessel with all of your biofilter material. So again, you can use whatever you want. So you get it to the level that you want. Then, if you plan to put plants in the top layer of this, I'd like to make a couple suggestions. Let's get this right. I'd like to make a couple of suggestions based on my experiences over the last couple of years. I would suggest that you cut another piece of egg crate to put down on top of the material. And again, I will probably do that. Mine broke, so I have to cut a new one. But in theory, you would just cut another piece to sort of lay down on top of your assorted biofilter material to kind of keep it in place. And then I'm going to take that other floor polisher pad, and I'm either going to put it on top of the egg crate or just under the egg crate. I think I'm going to try it on top of the egg crate first, and that would complete your assembly. Now obviously you want to coordinate the depth of all this material with the outlet hole. You might even find yourself wanting to block the outlet hole to some extent, depending on how high up you want your water level to be inside here for plants. Floating plants work really well, but you could do obviously any kind of plant that works well in an aquaponics situation. I've used water hyacinth the last 2 years, and I'll show a little clip or a shot here of how big the water hyacinth got. Now, in my case, last fall, I did not clean it out. I ended up getting poison ivy in the garden, and I was just, I was a not so happy person. And before I knew it, winter came, and I never pulled it out. The reason why I had to rebuild it this year is because, believe it or not, those water hyacinth roots managed to get the whole way down to the bottom of this thing. That's how big those plants get. So it's better to clean the plants out in the fall. You do not need to clean the biofilter out every year. Had I not done that and I cleaned it out properly, I probably would not have had to have taken it apart and reassembled it. Based on some different websites I've gone to, a lot of people have had Skippy filters like this that they've either never cleaned or they haven't cleaned in years. These things just keep going and going. So I'm going to pause this. I'm going to wrap up the little bit that I need to do, and then I'm going to figure out what I need to do to get this hooked back up to the pump. Okay, I have the biofilter hooked into my pond pump. My pump happens to service the biofilter as well as my bubbling lava rock. I'll give you a closer look here. This year I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to repot these various plants in fabric containers to see if I can control the root situation just a little better. Like I said earlier in the video, there's that layer of the floor scrubber pad. Now if you do this, you're going to want to cut it in half, obviously, so that if you have to get down in there and move something around, you can lift the floor pad layer out without having to take your piping apart to get it out of the way. These are just some different plants I got. Walmart and the garden store. I did end up blocking the outlet just a little bit to raise the water level in the basin here to keep the plants moist. But all in all, it's working like a champ. This is how it all looks at night. It is just awesome to be able to sit here and watch and listen to this. Very, very relaxing. I want to say thank you so much for watching the video. I hope that some of you out there decide to give this project a try. And if you do, of course, please come back and share it with us. Thank you so much for watching.